You know, we like to give a little advanced warning here. Our next topic falls in the PG-13 category, so you may want to push pause, excuse those little ears from the room. But here is where the topic begins, and that is with your to-do list. The fact is, we know you have a lot to do today. Most moms do. But before you start checking things off, listen to what my next guest says. You should rework your to-do list and move lovemaking to the top. Laura Brotherson is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified sex therapist, and author of the new book, Knowing Her Intimately, 12 Keys to Creating a Sextraordinary Marriage. She's also a mother of 3, married for more than 20 years, so fair to say she gets it, right?
Yeah.
You get it. You get this issue. And for women, it's so interesting, Laura. It's great to have you here. It's interesting to me because we plan and we map out and we steer as women everything in our lives. Why do you think women then tend to step back when it comes to the topic of sex and intimacy?
I think one of the big reasons is there's so little positive, affirming mention of sex, thank goodness for you here, that I think we tend to put it kind of in this unmentionable realm that's kind of a side thought. But I'm all about strengthening marriages, and I'm all about, like the title of this book, creating sextraordinary marriages. And so we kind of got to do some work to get women to embrace their sexuality as part of their wholeness. And women are a couple of steps away from what I would call sexual desire, whereas our husbands tend to be walking around with it a little bit.
Okay.
So we have a little bit more work to do to get to it.
And I mean, women out there will acknowledge we know this is an important part of marriage,
Sure.
But you throw out that work challenge, and I don't think women know exactly where to begin.
Right.
In fact, you say a big mistake many women make is not taking responsibility for their own sexual fulfillment. Explain that.
Yes, but I would almost take it back a step. I'm less concerned at the moment for their sexual fulfillment and more concerned about them taking responsibility for their sexuality. The general sexuality. What we know from research is that many women have an asexual view of themselves. That basically means that they see themselves as a spiritual person, a social person, a physical, mental, psychological person, but not a sexual one. And when you don't have that as your foundation, then everything else you try to do to develop the sexual relationship is gonna not go very far.
Why is it so hard for women to identify themselves as sexual?
Where would they get that? Where would they think about it? Where would they get that? We don't have very much positive affirmingness of our sexuality. Think about your parents, think about, church, society. I have a hard time getting out there for a public forum for positive, healthy sexuality, and that's contributing to the dilemma we're in now.
Which is so interesting to me because you're so respectful about the topic, and many others are as well. It's just we don't quite know how to begin the dialogue. So thank you.
Scary.
Thank you for being here to start it for us. Your book outlines 12 keys to creating a great sex life. In our time together, we're going to try to go through maybe five or six or so. First up, you say women need to transform their sexual identity.
Yes.
What do you mean, and how do we do that?
So that's kind of what I was talking about with this asexual view of self. You do need to accept, embrace, and nurture your sexuality as something you're doing for your own wholeness, your own completeness, not just something we're doing for our husbands. That's good, but it's not what I'm shooting for.
It's part of it, it's not all of it.
It's not all of it. We've got to get more to that deeper root of it. And some of the ways we do it is, even just changing, identifying your inhibiting thoughts and core beliefs about sex can go a long way to starting to accept it. We don't know that sex is good and of God and a good part of our wholeness, and until we get that message into our brains, we have a hard time making anything else work.
Also, is it a perception or a reality that some women don't like sex? They don't enjoy sex as much as men. Is that a fact?
I kind of disagree with that because I just think women don't know how they're wired, which is why I've written a second book about 12 keys for women to walk through and figure it out. I think it's very doable. I just think women don't know how, and neither do their husbands.
So it's more a perception?
Very much. I would definitely put it in perception.
And your first book, we have to acknowledge, was groundbreaking, especially in Christian circles, for women to get this conversation going. Another key ingredient you say to a happy sex life, you write about it in the book, is tenderness. Yes. I have to imagine this is something women understand and embrace a little easier.
They do that one well. This is actually chapter 3, and that's the chapter that husbands can do the most good with. But this is your tenderness, trust, thoughtfulness, respect. I've got a self-assessment of 20 characteristics that couples can go through and figure out. But this is our foundation of the relationship. This is that secure attachment, that secure base. This is the fuel for female desire. When we get that emotional intimacy together, yeah, that's when we can really move forward. If this isn't so great, because for women, sex is a decision. Again, we don't have that feeling of desire generally, so we flip a mental switch to say, I'll go there. Why in the heck would we flip that mental switch if we kind of don't like our husbands and he's a jerk and he never does what we want and he doesn't show any respect?
So that's where the emotional connection comes into play. This next point, no offense, it sounds like it was written by a woman, and it was. You say talking can be a turn on.
Yes.
I agree.
Talking, okay, for two reasons. Number one, talking is the primary way we create emotional intimacy. It's how we connect. Look what we're doing right now. Talking is that. That's kind of the outside the bedroom stuff.
Yeah.
But talking also is a turn on, because if you think of men being more visually oriented, let's think about women possibly being auditorily oriented. And so even the ums and the ahs, and I love it when you do that, in the context of lovemaking, helps her to focus, because good sex is a mental discipline, which is a whole nother topic. And we're able to then be present in the lovemaking experience, and that words of endearment is very arousing, like it might be visually arousing for a husband.
I see. So not just the communication that happens outside the bedroom, but what's being said behind the doors as well. Sometimes it's hard for couples to get in sync, and you've touched on this, right? That men have the desire in them, women sometimes have to flip the switch. So how can women help tune in emotionally and also sexually? How can they flip that switch you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a great, I think that's one of my favorite chapters, chapter 9. But if couples can't tune in well outside the bedroom, think about how tough it's going to be to tune in well inside the bedroom. Women do not want to be directing traffic in the bedroom. Neither do men, but they're not really paying that much attention anyway. But, you know, so there's a lot of learning that goes on, and it kind of starts with being tuned into you. You've got to know you, you've got to know your spouse, and then you've got to tune in both emotionally and then sexually.
And that's happening again, both outside and
both inside
the bedroom.
and outside.
You devote a chapter to teasing, which I think is interesting. And I think as marriages progress and mature, a lot of people think, this is just not within my grasp. The teasing, the playfulness, the flirtiness. How do you bring that back?
I know. I tease my clients when I say, yeah, I can be spontaneous as long as I schedule it. You know, then I'm good.
Right.
But teasing, I love this one, because as a marriage and family therapist, I actually have put my finger on that my pinpoint of a really good relationship is that playfulness. When a couple has that little funness, and it's the first thing to go too. When couples are not playful and teasing with each other, you know we're in trouble. So that's very doable, and it's more of a tone. It's just kind of a lightheartedness, a playfulness. It's wonderful. It's missing. That's why it's one of these 12 keys that you gotta get.
And finally, jumping ahead a bit, we know the best marriages are built in trust, and there's a special kind of trust that's required when we're talking about that intimate relationship. How can couples attain that deeper connection, even making lovemaking a spiritual experience?
Yes, and that's the last chapter, 12, transcendence, which is basically, taking, we don't get sexuality in the first place, but what we even get less is the spirituality of sex. So we're taking this to a whole new level, and there's not just a degree of trust between a husband and wife, but for a lot of my clients, I take them to a level of there needs to be a trust with God, because sometimes that ability to let go in the sexual experience requires a firm hold on yourself, but also a firm anchor that maybe isn't even on your spouse at the moment, but is God. That creates that spirituality that you can connect with as husband and wife, but creates a real safe place for you to be all in and let go.
Well, I mentioned your first book was a groundbreaker. I have no idea this book will as well. It's Knowing Her Intimately, 12 Keys for Creating a Sextraordinary Marriage. Where can we pick up a copy?
Hopefully everywhere, because this is release date today. Amazon, StrengtheningMarriage.com. Hopefully your local bookstores have it, and if they don't, tell them to get it.
You're doing a great job at what you do. Thanks for cracking the conversation and doing so respectfully.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, Laura.